identify yourself and your position, and then we'll proceed. Folks on the line, please identify yourself.
Yeah, this is Chair Delegate So. This is Office of Legislative Counsel Chad Beta and Mr. Haven on the line. Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning, honorable delegates. US EPA Region 9 is on the line.
Good morning, Delegate. So this is Lester Sosi, BIA is on the line.
Yate delegates, honorable delegates, this is Daryl Yazi and Navajo Superfund is on the line.
Good morning, delegates. This is Bart Stevens, Deputy Bureau Director, BIA.
Good morning, honorable So and delegates. This is Emily Arvizo, Acting Associate Deputy Director, BIE Navajo.
Good morning, honorable delegate, Chairman. So this is Sharon Pinto, BIE Deputy Bureau Director for School Operations. And we have other BIE representatives on the line as well. Thank you.
Yate Bennett, this is Belinda Shirley with Navajo EPA. Yate Nana.
Yate Bennett, Delegate So, committee members, this is Cheryl Curley, BIA Navajo Region.
Good morning, Chair, committee members. This is Michelle Morris with Navajo Department of Health.
Good morning. This is Jess Brand with the BIA Deputy Regional Director here for Indian Services in Gallup.
Anybody else? Okay, then if not, then we'll go to reviewing and adopting the proposed agenda. We have a substitute legislative advisor this morning, Ms. Laureen Spencer. Could you review the agenda with the committee?
Good morning, everybody, and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. Proposed agenda, Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, 24th Navajo Nation Council. Regular meeting, August 25th, 2021, 10 a.m. Presiding, Honorable Daniel E. So, Chairperson. Honorable Carl R. Slater, Vice Chairperson. Place through telecommunication. 1, call meeting to order. Roll call, invocation, announcements. Number 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. Number 3, review and adopt agenda. Number 4, review and adopt the journals. There's none. 5, receiving report. A, Cove Day school site temporary closure due to environmental radioactivity concerns in adjacent locations. Presenters are Elsa Johnson, US EPA Region 9, Superfund Division Tribal Lands, Cleanup Section, San Francisco, California. Sharon Pinto, Deputy Bureau Director, Bureau of Indian Education. Lester Sosi, Acting Navajo Regional Director, Bart Stevens, Deputy Bureau Director for Field Operations, Belinda Shirley, Director, Navajo EPA, Dr. Joe Jim, Executive Director, Navajo Nation Department of Health. 6 old business, none. 7 new business, legislation number 0174-21B, legislation number 0173-21. 8, close of meeting, announcement and adjournment. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Committee members?
Motion, Juanita.
Motion by Honorable Edison to adopt the agenda.
Second, Delegate Slater.
Second by Honorable Vice Chair Slater. Committee members, any discussion, either to amend or to add or delete items to the agenda? There being none, so could we have the roll call vote, please?
I can do that, Chair. Honorable Paul McGay, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Paul McGay votes green. Honorable Pernell Helona, how do you vote?
Helona votes green.
Honorable Pernell Helona votes green. Honorable Carl Slater, how do you vote?
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So, how do you vote? And Honorable Edison Winika, how do you vote? Honorable Edison Winika votes green. Chair, you have 4 members in favor, 0 opposed, and Chair not voting.
Okay, thank you. Let it be known that Honorable Charlene So is at the Shiprock Agency public hearing being staged at the Central Consolidated School District Performing Arts Center. So she's there with legislative staff to record and to receive the public comments on Proportionate Plan 6. Okay, we go to item 4. Review and adopt the journals. There being none, we will proceed to receiving report. A, the Cove Day school site closure. I'm going to change the presentation order. Ms. Sharon Pinto, we had received statements and comments from you on August 18. And so there was all the folks listed to participate in this portion of the report. The committee wanted to establish a banner with timelines. And what was presented last week, there are some gaps in the timeline. And if we could, if Ms. Pinto, you've received additional information to fill in the gaps, as well as Mr. Bart Stevens, Mr. Daryl Yazzie. There was other folks on the call at the time. Mr. Chamberlain, Ms. Padilla, and let's see, there was Mr. Plummer, I think it was, and then we also heard from Ms. Belinda Shirley. So we'll start with Ms. Sharon Pinto, and then next will be Mr. Bart Stevens, unless Ms. Pinto designates other folks that would be on the call to present. Thank you. Ms. Pinto.
Good morning again, Yat Honorable Chair, Chairman Stowe, and members of the committee. And thank you to all of the folks that have joined us this morning on this very important subject matter. Representatives from US EPA, Navajo Region BIA, as well as BIA representatives. Thank you for participating in the discussions today. Again, from the BIE reporting level, as we have advised, the BIE issued a letter to the school principal, and the letter was issued by the acting ADD, Ms. Emily Arvizo. She is on the call this morning as well. The memorandum simply advised the school that pending an interior survey of testing that will be conducted by US EPA and Navajo EPA, the school will be temporarily closed. So with that, we close the school. The folks utilizing the school building at that time were the teachers and the administrators. There was about 13 employees. The students continue to remain through remote. They were on a remote learning status, receiving their educational services virtually. So the vacating of the school building consisted of the 13 employees. Since then, the building remains closed. We were informed by Navajo Nation EPA that they will be conducting air quality testing Friday, so August 27th. In addition, US EPA has advised that they will be out, and I'm sure they will inform us more clearly this morning. They are scheduled to be on site at the school location to conduct further testing and what they call, I guess, an interior survey of the current existing school building, I believe sometime next week into up to September 6th. But yes, I agree, the timeframes need to be a little bit more stabilized. I think there was a lot of planning that has been going on up to now, and a lot of good planning, a lot of good discussions, coordination, and we look forward to hearing those final dates and plans. But Navajo EPA did advise that they would be on site Friday the 27th to conduct their air quality testing. As far as the BIE school, again, as I've indicated, the school remains closed. The building remains closed pending these the interior survey and the walkthrough and assessments by the technical advisors. And that's all we have to report from our end at this point. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, the system is muting us in the BNF conference room. Thank you, Ms. Pinto. Please mention what will occur on August 27th.
As far as from my understanding, Navajo Nation EPA will be on site August 27th to conduct the air quality testing, and I believe they're on the call. I would defer to them to provide further detailed information about their visit on that day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, honorable committee members. This is Eugenia Quintana with the Air and Toxics Department, Navajo Nation EPA. We will be having a number of employees from a radon program.
Ms. Quintana,
Yes,
please hold off. Let me hear from our federal partners first, and then we'll go proceed to the U.S. EPA, and then finally to Navajo EPA.
okay.
Thank you. Mr. Bart Stevens, Mr. Lester Sosi, and then we'll go to Miss Emily Arvizo. Mr. Stevens.
Good morning, Chairman So. Good morning, other delegates and others on the call this morning. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to come and provide a little bit of an update of BIA's role in this process. Certainly I'll pass the torch here to Mr. Sosi after I give some comments. First and foremost, I wanted to bring to your attention and everybody else on the call that the issues that we're dealing with at Cove Day School have reached central office, and the Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs, Mr. Newland specifically, has asked for updates and briefings from my shop on what we're doing and what progress we're making to ensure that staff and students, community members, and others are safe and free from negative impacts, and that we're doing what we need to do to address the issues that are present. I wanted to also bring forward to you all that Central Office, DASM, Deputy Assistant Secretary Management, who supervises OFPSM facilities safety program, which oversees DFMC. I know a lot of letters there. But DFMC is charged with the new school construction and getting that project moving forward. But they are well aware of the issues that came out of this group at our last meeting regarding the school location and what that would involve, or in terms of the request, should the existing identified site be, after the environmental assessment, have some issues or concerns. So they are well aware of that piece. They are thinking among themselves at the DASM level and at OFPSM what that would look like should we get to that point down the road after all the environmental assessments are completed and we have a better understanding of not just the existing conditions in the existing facility, but what impacts that would have on the new school construction. I brought forward to that group also that, you know, this community, as well as many other communities, have been on the school replacement list for many years. So it's definitely an exciting time to get to this point for new school construction and being able to celebrate that and look forward to it, albeit now dealing with the environmental issues and making sure that it's a safe site for everyone is very important to everyone at central office, and as I referenced, the Assistant Secretary and the DASM, the Deputy Assistant Secretary Management. So I want to bring that update that's definitely on everybody's mind, and Cove Day School is as well, with wanting to better understand the progress and the communication that we're having and the progress that we're making with the Navajo Nation, your group here, as well as the Navajo Nation in general. And then as was referenced before, the BIA regional office in Gallup, environmental scientists, work that they've done, that they continue to do, and how they engage with Navajo Nation, EPA, and others is certainly paramount as well. And I'll, at this point, pass this to Mr. Sosi, who's the acting regional director for the Navajo region, to provide updates on that work from his shop and the environmental scientist shop at the Navajo region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Who is the environmental scientist?
That would be Ms. George Padilla at the regional
Oh, yes.
office in
Oh,
Gallup.
yes. Thank you. Mr. Sosi, Cecilia, Honorable, whoops, Mr. Sosi, Acting
Good
Regional
morning.
Director.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity for Bureau of Indian Affairs Navajo Region to participate in this call. We really appreciate the questions that are being asked so that we are able to provide guidance and answer those questions. I'll share some remarks and then turn it over to George Padilla if she has any additional comments to make. So over the past, I would say about at least three weeks at least, there's been significant coordination and communication between multiple federal agencies as well as with Navajo Nation EPA and others that are looking at this situation at Cove Day School. If you look at the work that's happening in communication, I think there's 3 areas of communication coordination going on. One is the remediation of the 4 hotspots at the old school there. Then the radon testing that has to be addressed, as well as the new school construction. So I at least for me to better understand it, and talking with George, we've kind of categorized all the activities into those 3 areas. Now I'd like to share with you some of the coordination scheduling that's been happening between DFMC, project manager, and our environmental office. And this is very tentative, and I believe George can add more details to it. According to DFMC, on August 20th, the DFMC project manager is to send Navajo Nation EPA recommended locations to be surveyed for uranium contamination at the Cove Day School new construction site. Then August 23rd, DFMC remediation contractor mobilizes equipment on the Cove Day School site. Contractor will start remediation when the radiological field survey plan and quality assurance plan is reviewed and approved. This is for the existing school site. August 30th, US EPA is scheduled to conduct testing in the interior of the school to provide recommendations on safety. Then on September 15th, remediation scheduled to be completed for the existing school site. The right-of-way for the water utility lines across the road and transfer station and adjacent road next to the school will need to be tested for contamination before civil work begins. Construction period will be approximately 18 months after the remediation and land clearance is achieved. So those will be just some dates to take into consideration. And I'd like to ask George Padilla if she has additional comments to provide. George, are you on the line?
Thank you, Mr. Sosi. Ms. Padilla. George Padilla.
Chair, she might be having difficulties calling in, so we can return back to her later on, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sosi. Okay. now the director of the DFMC. I can't recall the individual's name. In the previous meeting, you had relayed, the federal folks had relayed that DFMC would be the lead agency on what would occur in the remediation and the testing, as well as going forward on new construction.
Chairman, so if I may.
Yes, Mr. Stevens, go ahead.
We might have miscommunicated that slightly. The lead for the remediation would be the BIA Navajo region with George Padilla's shop in working with Navajo Nation EPA and US EPA, as well as pulling in our partners from BIE for that piece of the existing facility. DFMC's larger role is the contract with the new school construction. So they too are waiting for data analysis that's going to be completed by the previous group I just mentioned to then make some decisions on the new school construction piece. And the gentleman that's acting in that capacity for DFMC is Mr. Gabe Draper.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Okay, now going on down the line, Ms. Emily Arvizo.
Good morning, Honorable Chairman Stowe and council delegates, committee delegates. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to comment on this important situation that we are all dealing with. With the guidance from Ms. Pinto and US EPA and Navajo Nation, we closed our school until further testing could be conducted. Our school does remain closed. Instruction is being delivered remotely, distance learning. And, you know, this is also a concern for us because it does impact our teaching and learning. So we will continue to monitor the process, the progress, and hopefully, you know, we can get back into our school and move forward with face-to-face instruction with our students. I and my staff will continue to monitor and be in conversation with the progress of what is happening in the testing and also the outcomes and what we do next, but also following the guidance from the experts in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Arvizo. Okay, that being done, let me call to the table then Ms. Elsa Johnson, and then the other folks that would be with the US EPA. Ms. Elsa Johnson.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. This is Sona Chilingarian with US EPA. I'm not hearing Elsa. Elsa, are you on the line? Are you able to hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now, Elsa.
Okay, all right, my screen disappeared, so I'm sorry. Yat e bine shinant Honorable Chairman, so do shinan dishnile ado the rest of the committee members. Yeah, kwan hata hof ato e shin kwa shin da huit net dole. Shady shin hin slet kazaslan washes chain hanagani da shin nal da was kahat so e da shi na ga ze hijin ba do e yisi force lake da hasnendo ado the US EPA Region 9 San Francisco aja e trachnaschnische ko die aja at set o at so ya di hinda nishigi eben in hisvodeshne. So I just want to really briefly introduce what our charge is as far as Tribal Lands Cleanup Section Superfund Division. There are 523 mine sites, abandoned uranium mine sites across Navajo Nation. And of those, we have 230 that are funded through court settlements. And because we have the enforcement ability to go after people that, I'm sure you've heard the saying, the polluter pays. And so hence we have 9 responsible parties that we have been able to get settlements with. And then on top of that, there's 2 trustee settlements as well. And they are funded from the USDOJ to clean up the sites that are deemed priority sites. And both trustees have been Navajo people, Sadie Hosky and now Dareth Watchman Moore. And the PRPs are various private companies that we have settled with. And so about half of the funded sites are under going through removal site evaluation draft. I guess the reports are in draft. And so we have constant meetings, virtual meetings with Navajo EPA, going through these documents, reviewing and commenting on documents. And also there's a process that the Congress has put us, has charged us with. So we have to follow a certain process in investigating and also cleaning up these sites. And then on top of that, we also have another program we call Contaminated Structures Program, which we scan homes and yards of folks on Navajo that, are, suspecting some contamination. Because after the mining ended, some of the, our grandfathers and our fathers that worked in these sites went back to those places and have, were known to pick up, dirt or rock to build their foundations for their homes. So if we find that, the home is contaminated, then of course we replace that. So that's another program that we have. And so in the northern region, northern Navajo region, we have 229 abandoned uranium mine sites. And then of those, we have 127 that are fully funded. And I know Navajo has, is divided into 5 federal agencies, BIA agencies. However, we have 6 regions that because just to, help our work. And so we have 6 abandoned uranium mine regions across Navajo. And there are 33 abandoned uranium mine sites in Cove. 33 of them are, actually 33 are Tronox sites, and then 9 are Cypress sites. And then there's a handful that are unfunded. And so we have been present in Cove for a number of years, and we work closely with the local community leaders. And so I just wanted to give you a background of what we do. And we are basically charged to investigate abandoned uranium mine sites and then clean up these sites. And so we have And then of course, the residential, the contaminated structures program that we have. So with that, I want to introduce my team, Sona Chilagarian. She is the Tribal Lands Cleanup Section Manager. She's one of 2 managers. And then also Jesse Cass. He is the Remedial Project Manager assigned to Cove, and he has extensive radiological experience, and also he's a certified health physicist, and he's had over 11 years of abandoned uranium mine work. And then also have Krista Brown. She's a remedial project manager as well as Danielle Hung. And so they're very qualified professionals that have been doing this work for quite a number of years. So with that, I would like to hand this over to Sona Chilagarian.
Thank you so much for that, Elsa. And thank you, Honorable Chairman So and committee members and all others that are in attendance today. Like Elsa described, US EPA works with Navajo EPA to clean up abandoned uranium mine sites on Navajo Nation. That's the focus of our work and where our agency has expertise. We're not in the lead role when it comes to assessing public buildings. That's usually the responsibility of other agencies, health departments, and the property owners of public buildings. At BIE's and Ms. Sharon Pinto's request, we're providing technical assistance with the Cove Day School. Our goal is to conduct an interior survey of the school the week of September 6th, not the week of August 30th. We're hoping to be out there the week of September 6th for the interior survey. Us deploying the week of September 6th is dependent on us finalizing a work plan that we're trying to finalize as quickly as we can, working with Navajo EPA and the other agencies that are involved. Happy to answer questions, Chairman So, or provide additional information if that would be useful.
Thank you. Again, state your name.
Sure, it's Sona, S-O-N-A, and my last name is unfortunately long and difficult. It's Chilingarian. And I'm happy to provide my name to the committee in writing if that would be helpful.
Yes, and if you could provide a document that delineates the timeline that you just reviewed with the committee.
Great. Absolutely, Chairman. We'll follow up in that way. And if I could, I would love to allow our technical staff, our remedial project manager, Jesse Cass, to describe a little bit what would be involved in the interior survey that we're planning.
Yes, go ahead, Jesse, and again, I don't want to be disrespectful and pronounce your name right, so I'll just use your first name. You have the teleconference floor.
Yeah, can you hear us, Jesse? If you're speaking, we can't hear you. Maybe you're on mute.
How about now? Can you guys hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Got it. Had to unmute in 2 places. My apologies. Honored to be with you all this morning. Yeah, like Sona said, I'll just give a very quick summary of the work we'll be doing inside the school, and then happy to take any questions anyone has. So we'll be mobilizing a contractor, a respected health physics firm, radiological assessment firm. They'll be bringing out a number of experienced radiological technicians led by another certified health physicist, all of whom have quite a bit of experience doing these kinds of assessments. we'll be collecting data inside of the main school building and also inside of the 3 adjacent modulars that the students use. And during our assessment work, we'll collect a number of different kinds of gamma radiation measurements, which show any contamination or elevated radiological levels that would be related to what's been seen outside. So we'll thoroughly scan the inside of the building and also take a number of static measurements that will let us determine dose to students or staff if they were in there. And then in addition to that, our partner at Navajo EPA, like you heard, will have put out passive radon collection canisters to assess radon gas levels, which is a radioactive gas that can come from uranium. And sort of together, we'll look at all of those results once they come in and make an assessment as to safe conditions inside of the school.
Thank you for the presentation. And again, please convey what you relayed to the committee so that we have those documents available to our legislative staff as well as to the committee members. Committee members, do you have any questions? Just know that as we go down, I'm sure we'll have follow-up meetings to see how the progress of each of these items that was delineated by Ms. Pinto, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Sosi. I'm sure we'll keep this agenda item in front of us, but what would really help is to get actual documents to, again, build the timeline banner and then supporting documents. The committee would be very interested in getting the testing results. Thank you.
Chairman, so this is Delegate Claudia.
Oh, yeah, Desha Mayaja, thank you for getting on the call. I know it's this particular school is within your legislative council district, and thank you. We appreciate you coming in. And again, once we get more of these documents, they will be also, you will be part of the email to share these documents that are being, as what each of the presenters have talked about here. You have the teleconference floor to ask questions and make comments.
Thank you, Chairman So and committee members of the Health, Education, Human Service, and those on the line. I appreciate the report. If I could request, Chairman So, I appreciate the information that's been provided from the program. If we could make sure that there's some type of summary in layman's terms that we could provide to the constituents and to the parents so that they're updated. I would also, Chair and committee members, we're continuing our budget hearings today, and Department of Dene Education is on our agenda. I would like to make a legislative concern regarding the radon exposure across Navajo Nation, and requesting that the Department of Dene Education provide an update working with our Navajo Nation EPA radon program as a legislative concern. And so we could speak about that at the budget hearing, but I think sometimes we need to take action for accountability been reviewing the letters and the radon testing. So it looked like the testing was done in like the 90s, and then there was a follow-up letter in like 2016. And so I think even in terms of the timelines, if radon is known to cause lung cancer and other health elements, especially the population that we're talking about, these are young children who have in their genetic, and working with Dr. Perry Charlie and understanding at a cellular level how this impacts, this radioactive material impacts. I just want to make sure that we're accountable to our communities. And I think Department of Diné Education can lead those discussions to make sure that our schools are safe in coordination with our federal partners. So thank you, Chair, for adding this to the agenda. It's very helpful so that, and the committee's time, I know that the expectation is that there's executive programs who should be accountable to this. And so I appreciate the committee carving out time, and the Cove community and all of our children appreciate the advocacy from this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Shemayaza, Honorable Amber Crotty. Again, the expression of the legislative concern will be part of what the committee would support. The only, and I appreciate the fact that by the long way around in this government-to-government relationship, it finally got to the HES committee. It finally got to Doty. And that's one of the major concerns that really prompted us to put this matter on the agenda. If we didn't have a 638 contractor sharing the original letter, we would have never known. And in that federal and tribal relationship, sometimes couched in trust responsibility, it didn't occur. And apparently the office of the president and vice president didn't know about it until the 638 contractor emailed the letter to acting superintendent Patricia Ghani with Department of Diné Education, and Ms. Ghani then forwarded it to the HES committee and to the office of the president and vice president. So in that, Ms. Pinto, Mr. Stevens, we have to recognize in this trust relationship with the Navajo Nation, in the aspect of tribal consultation, in the aspect of exercising trust responsibility, the Navajo Nation is, as far as I know, the only nation that has a 3-branch government. And in that trust relationship, the federal government has to inform at the most the 2 branches of government that affect administrative matters, and policy matters, legislative matters. And I've requested Office of Legislative Counsel, and we will seek legislation from the Navajo Nation to further define the fact that we are a three-branch government, and that has to be honored. Thank you, Shamaya, for bringing that. And again, we will basically forward that issue and concern to the Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs, Mr. Brian Newland, as well as the Department of Interior Secretary, Madam Secretary Deb Holland. And this is a perfect example that there hasn't been the honoring of trust responsibility. Let's continue. Ms. Elsa Johnson, do you have any other staff that would present to the committee?
Let's see, Sona or Krista, perhaps Krista Brown. She's a project manager. She's been the one pulling all of the agencies together, BIA, BIE, facilities management, and others, solicitors, and of course Navajo EPA, and then US EPA. She's been pulling everyone together. We've had multiple meetings every week, and so I'll just give her the floor. Krista, go ahead.
Afternoon. Well, at this time, I don't have any further information to add. I will say that we will work on getting the short summary together for what we will be doing at the school for the parents in the community, as well as our titles. And if anybody needs to reach out to us or Navajo EPA, we will be available for those. Thanks.
Chairman So.
Yes, Mr. Stevens?
Yes, if I may.
Yes.
I just would like to thank you again for the comments that were just shared, your concerns with tribal consultation and other trust responsibilities that the BIA and Indian Affairs is charged with. And I just wanted to convey to you that certainly we understand the process. We know the level of communication that needs to happen, especially to the unique three-branch government that exists within the Navajo Nation. It's certainly acknowledged and understood from the regional level, if not central office, what are responsibilities and ways of communicating and sharing information, getting feedback, and consulting meaningfully. So I just wanted to reference that as something this administration with Mr. Newland is particularly concerned with. It has rolled out directives to us to engage with tribes more frequently and to be of assistance in any way that we possibly can. I take that to mean, for my new role as field operations over the 12 regional directors that are out there, including Navajo, is to put out directives that relate to my expectations with ongoing communication and how that happens. I know with this particular case, quite frankly, it was probably not communicated the way that it should have been internally as well as externally. So I just wanted to bring that forward, that we strive for improvement, and certainly we are at the Navajo Nation leadership disposal at the regional level first, as we like to solve things at the local level, but certainly to my level and central office and beyond if necessary. So please keep us on your contact list, council delegates that are on the call, as well as any others that will play a significant role in how we roll that information out. So unfortunately, Chairman, so I have to exit this call for another meeting, but I just wanted to share and reaffirm that commitment from Indian Affairs. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. I appreciate that acknowledgement. Again, I had personally met Mr. Brian Newland during the First Lady of the United States visit to the Navajo Nation. And so he's given me the latitude to call it. And so at some point in time, as issues accumulate or concerns accumulate, I will take that opportunity. However, going forward, Ms. Sharon Pinto, I hope you also understand the massive concern that this committee has regarding communication to the committee as well as to the executive branch on the need for, again, if and of great concern is just the fact that, you know, folks are rotating on 120-day assignments. And many times we don't know when those assignments change. And the committee had previously asked for Mr. Sherman's attendance at committee meetings, and we find out his assignment had expired, and we didn't know who the next person was delegated. And so there are some issues that remain unresolved with the committee as with what is going on within Navajo area. And we would appreciate, I guess, you know, the naming of leadership that would be the single point of contact for the committee here on Navajo. Ms. Pinto.
Good afternoon or good morning again, Mr. Chairman. So thank you for that direction again, and reminding all of our federal partners, federal officials, of the significant role we have in ensuring our trust responsibility is maintained and sustained throughout this working relationship and responsibility that we have to the nation and the community members. Certainly with that in mind, the Bureau of Indian Education, once we became aware, as stated in our initial letter to the school, as well as to the community members, the parents, basically that there was some concern, environmental concerns with the existing school building. As we were immediately informed, it was most appropriate that we needed to ensure that the appropriate technical folks were brought in
to assess the situation before we continue occupancy of the building with the students as well as the teachers and school administrators. And first and foremost is the safety and protection of those individuals that occupy the building on a daily basis. And so the BIE took those measures to assess and bring about that determination, and the decision was made to close the school temporarily pending the technical assessment and reviews by the appropriate agencies that help to support the BIE schools on Navajo. And again, through that consultation and discussions with US EPA, Navajo EPA, and BIA Environmental, there were assurances made that the quickest and soonest that teams can be deployed to provide this assessment would be certainly prioritized and generated, and it appears that that has occurred within the last couple of weeks. And there, as we've heard this morning, there are commitments made by these folks to be on the ground in the next week or so, and to provide that assurance for the continued occupation of the school building, given that we are in the school, that school is in session, although remotely, it still is in session. And we want to provide some assurance that the school building is safe. And the current status of this particular school is remains a Bureau operated school. It's not necessarily a 297 contracted school location just yet. But given that status, the Bureau proceeded with that decision-making on behalf of the immediate safety and protection of the occupants at the time. And the communication with DOTI and the communication with the local school officials and the communication with the local officials was provided through the acting ADD, Emily Arviso. As far as specific communication to the executive and legislative branch, I cannot right now attest that that was communicated in the most appropriate manner, as I'm well aware is expected, and should be done immediately. And so I think those are areas that we do want to address internally, and we will internally discuss again, and ensure that protocols are reestablished and understood by the BIE management team. So again, Honorable So and members of the HESI committee and other delegates that are on the call. Again, the BIE was not intentional in misstepping the communication and protocols responsibilities and sharing information about the school, temporary school closure of Cove Day School recently. I think the immediate measure was to provide communication to the principal and to the teachers, administrators, and to the parents of the status of the school for their immediate safety and communication. So we will have that internal discussion, and I will advise Director Dearman of this piece of information. I've already relayed communication back of your message, Chairman So, and communication back to the Asia office as well. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Pinto. With that, Ms. Elsa Johnson, do you have anybody else to make comments or provide information to the committee?
Is Will Duncan on the line by chance?
Hi, Elsa. This is Sona Chilingarian. Will Duncan was not able to join us this morning, unfortunately.
So with that, I'd just like to add something else because we're doing extensive investigation of this over between 40 to 50 uranium mine sites up on the mountain. So I just wanted to also mention, because it's a pretty rugged area, and there was basically just one route up and down to those sites. That particular road goes right by the school where the school is located. And there's a transfer station probably about a quarter mile past the school. And that transfer station, we call it transfer station. We did a interim action on that, which means we did we did work to resolve the situation there. So if you can imagine all these trucks coming off the mountain and with heavy loads, and my visits with a couple of uranium mine workers, these gentlemen are, in their late 80s. They both told me, "Sate, he shidetso, da iyeko sate be ketni sons edo dai sate chon. Okoneko okotiko eya di biyelegit oko that they got a." And so that was the situation. These trucks, with heavy loads, sometimes would get a flat tire, or either they had a mechanical issue. And if that happened, typically what was done is these trucks would be unloaded. The ore would just be dumped there. So in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. That, of course, this is just me. Don't put any credibility to this until all the tests are done. And we call them haul roads, and that haul road goes right where the school is. And I believe that oftentimes that happened. And so I think that's just something to keep in the back of your mind as well, because the elevated, geological formation is a little further up the mountain. So for that reason, all of the mines are up on top. And so just FYI, and of course, we have to do all this test first, and before we make that determination. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson. Now we'll proceed to the Navajo Nation EPA. Ms. Relinda Shirley, and then Ms. Quintana, and Mr. Darrell Yazzie. Ms. Shirley?
Yat Shanat Ani, Honorable Chair, so Yat Yad eha not ma she Belinda Shirley Yinchia. Ado Twajini Danain Shnido is a son Bashishchin. But Ani da Shache do Twatness Lani da Shanella. Ado Yad do a Sheha Nana Shanat Ani Danosini Hesi Committee do members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council Ado Shada do Amber Crowdy Yad do a Sheha. Ado Added da Isinos Agi do Dan Hinasiki do Yad Nishidini doles. Sto a Sheha doles to Shada Elsa Johnson Ado Miss Chilingarian, Jesse and Krista, thank you for your report, and then to Mr. Bart Stephen and Lester Sosi, Yat Eto Shaha Quagi, Hashim Togoba, the Quagi Cove Day School Giba, Hund Inigi Hashim Togo Ade, and his the house Nagi, so by Henson. Ado She Kudo, Navajo EPA do a Mr. Dario Yazi do Miss Eugenia Quintana, a Hashim Togonat Tosigi Nihijila. I believe the email was sent out on Monday. There was just a short summary of the event and just a brief report from our Navajo EPA to the HESI committee on this particular topic. So I'm going to take a couple of steps back here and then just say that I know that within Cove, there are quite a few AUM sites. The mining began in Cove and as early as 1949. So it's been there are quite a few mine sites altogether. And of those mine sites, there are 2 responsible parties that were identified to work on those mine sites. And one of them is the Tronics settlement. There's about 54 or 30 or so mines within the Cove area that Tronics is responsible for doing the remediation work for. And then the other party that is responsible in that area is the Cypress Amex settlement covers several of those mine sites. And then there are about 11 or so mines within the Cove area that do not have any responsible parties. And there's about 11 of, I think, of those AUM sites that don't have any responsible parties. So as my Shada was saying, Ms. Johnson, a lot of the mining did happen up within the mountains. So the said Sohigi Ahashint al Humana Hasbanigi Yahadit Edo, and then within Shantan they Tedo they Distajins on the Jonago Akitnas Kata Akinas Kata. According or do uranium nigi a ade testant igi a ade betata holong. According quagi Cove Day schools to anigi a naturally it should be an area that doesn't have any radioactive material unless it was kind of brought down by maybe even some flooding, or it could have also been a halrite a quagi diset so hagit degi yehodat esap danite or the Cove Day School agent Bakat Hasmin. From our office here within Navajo Nation EPA, on July of this year, on July 7th or 8th, I received a call from Mr. Sosi Tinajini from the Division of Facilities Management and Construction. So he, Mr. Sosi Tinajini reached out to me here. We had a lengthy discussion on what they were doing at Cove Day School. When Mr. Tinajini indicated that there were some hot spots when they were doing their gamma survey, immediately there was some concern on my part. And so I had them being BIA Mr. Sosi Tunajini provided reports to Navajo EPA on what they've discovered so far. So there are two concerns within the Cove Day School. One of the concerns is the radon issue, and then there are those hotspots that we're talking about at the Cove Day School school complex. So there's two issues or two environmental concerns there. So the radon portion of the discussion actually started back on July 2016. Navajo EPA had performed some radon testing at the Cove Day School, and Navajo EPA, along with US EPA at the time, wrote a letter to Cove Day School to let them know. The letter is addressed to Ms. Sharon Pinto to let BIA and BIE know that these that the radon testing were above a certain level. I'll let Ms. Quintana kind of touch on that. So this is one of the first issues, or one of the things that we're having to follow here at Navajo EPA. So Ms. Pinto did receive a letter in 2016 speaking to the radon issue, and right now we are asking for some of those engineering drawings and so forth to ensure that the new school that is being proposed have certain measures within the engineering portion of the design to ensure that the radon is being addressed. But I will have Ms. Eugenia Quintana touch on this bit. And the other part is from Mr. Yazi's shop. So within the Navajo Superfund program, we are reviewing the reports that were provided to us from BIA and BIE. And the idea here is we're going to look at the reports, provide some feedback to BIA and BIE, and and then from our part, we will be participating in the scanning and the exterior and interior radiological scanning of the school structures. So that would be, in a nutshell, my portion of the report. And then I would like to give some time to Ms. Eugenia Quintana to kind of walk us through the radon portion, and then, of course, turn the time over to Mr. Yazi to go through the radiological portion of our work as far as Navajo EPA is concerned. So, Shanat Ani, if the Chair So, if you would allow me, may I please have Ms. Eugenia Quintana speak to the radon?
Thank you, Ms. Shirley. Thank you for your presentation. So yes, Ms. Quintana, you have the teleconference floor.
Good morning, Yat Bene. Thank you again, honorable members of the Health and Human Services Committee. I am happy to provide you with some information related to what we will be doing on the ground at Cove Day School on Friday, which is coming up real soon, August the 27th. We have a team of people
Quintana.
who will be traveling to Cove.
Ms. Quintana, could you turn up the volume on your microphone or get closer to where you're whispering to us?
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me any better? I turned up the volume.
Not much. Speak up or get closer. Over here, our system is up.
Okay, is this any better?
Better, thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, all right, thank you. As I stated a little earlier, I will be going over some of the plans that we plan to undertake when our team goes out to Cove Day School on Friday, August the 27th. We did obtain a floor plan of the school, and the floor plan is used to determine how many passive radon test devices will be used. And right now we are estimating that we will need like 17 for the school. There will be a team of people who will kind of work in tandem with one another. Some people will be opening up the devices, and others will be writing down the serial numbers, other numerical identifiers that are on the test kits. They will go throughout the building, going to the locations in the building that have been identified to be the most acceptable places to place the devices. The plan is to have the test devices stay in place for the duration of the weekend, and the staff will go back on Monday to retrieve the devices and pretty much pick them up in the same sequence that they were placed in. They do also plan to get additional information that will be consolidated into a report once the information on the radon test devices comes back from the laboratory. We do work with a company called AirCheck. AirCheck provides the test devices, and they do have the laboratory that they use there on site that will analyze the test kits for us. We will follow other radon testing protocols and procedures. We have quality control measures in place. We will be following standard protocols related to using field blanks, duplicates, spikes. We'll make sure that we get everything in the mail to AirCheck. Once we receive the results back, we will interpret the results and come up with a list of recommendations to make. And what we're really looking for is to see if there are any radon measurements that come back as 4 picocuries or more. If any locations come back as showing 4 picocuries per liter of radon or more, our recommendation will be to take some type of action, and the most reasonable type of action thereafter is to follow up with a second test. We also plan on leaving a variety of brochures, literature with the school in the hopes that when the school reopens, there might be some parents who will be interested in learning more about radon. I did elaborate previously to the committee that radon is a cancer-causing radioactive gas. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, but it could be a problem in a home or in a school. Radon is estimated to cause many thousands of deaths each year. That's because when you breathe in air containing radon, you can get lung cancer. The Surgeon General has warned that radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer in the United States. Only smoking causes more lung cancer deaths. So if you smoke, your home has high radon levels, your risk of lung cancer is also high. Radon is found everywhere. It is found all over the U.S. It comes from the natural breakdown of uranium in soil, rock, and water, and gets into the air that you breathe. It can get into any type of building. It can get into homes, offices, schools, and that results in a high indoor radon level. Everybody should test for radon. Not schools, homes, public buildings should be tested. That's the only way to know if people are at risk from exposure to radon. Even the EPA has recommended that schools should be tested for radon. The Surgeon General and the EPA recommend testing all homes below the 3rd floor for radon. Testing is actually very inexpensive and very easy. It only takes a few minutes to set up these test devices, and across the U.S. there are millions of people who have already tested their homes for radon. If there's a radon problem, radon reduction systems are very effective, they work, and they are not very costly. even very high levels of radon can be reduced to more acceptable levels. So our objective with going to the Cove Day School to test on Friday is to test the school to obtain radon levels and report those to the applicable organizations and persons. And that concludes my brief report. If you have any questions, I'm available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quintana. Committee members, any questions?
Chair?
Yes. Hello, who was
Thank you.
that?
This is Delegate Slater. This is Delegate Slater. Can I ask a question?
Sure, Honorable Slater, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all the reports that have been provided. What I'm not hearing really is what was pursued after the reports that came out, was it 2016 or was it 2018, regarding the radon levels? And then I think prior to that, there was the other report on the 4 elevated sites on the campus. And then prior to that, there was, I guess, a wider analysis of the whole community. And the reason I had asked about reporting in the last session that we had was, seems like through reporting, an entity can be identified for following up on these things, but there's a patchwork right now of accountability. So I really want to know, and I guess I'm happy to hear that, you know, this report's going to take place, this testing's going to take place on Friday, and that's a good next step. But for this committee and for our people, I think there needs to be accountability on the processes that took place in the past and where institutions didn't follow through on their responsibilities to provide assurance to the community that their kids are safe. Second, I appreciate Delegate Crotty's legislative concern to Doty, but I think the committee really needs to contemplate where the appropriate place is to house these sorts of, you say it's radioactivity concerns and building safety concerns. And I don't believe that Doty has an office set up for that right now. And since this is a BIU school, it's the bureau that handles these matters. It's not a contracted grant school, and if it were, then it would be the board that would be responsible for this. So that's just a note, I guess, in a comment to my colleagues and to the committee that we need to think through how we can prevent this in the future and get a better understanding of how to do that. Right now, the system we have 56 different entities. About half of them are really just controlled by a board, and then the other half are controlled through the bureau, and it's very difficult for the nation to drive the education process, whether it's facility construction or accountability for student performance. This ties right back into that. So more of a comment on the second part, but I want to hear what measures are being taken by both EPA and the Bureau to investigate why certain actions weren't taken. And maybe there were some things that were taken that have been revealed since the last report. But that's going to inform better policy making out of the committee level and how we make requests for changes at DOI or implement them within our own titles. So thank you, Chair. I'll start off with that.
Thank you, Honorable Slater. Are you finished with your statement?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess the main thing is the radon testing will occur within the facilities to basically, I guess, the test results would be an expression of the level of exposure that children, the students, as well as the staff have been exposed to. And the other one that I'm really concerned about is the exposure to the students and radioactive, not radon, radioactive exposure to whatever it is, whether it's a uranium brick. In this morning's presentation, the expression of a hot spot. So it seems like there's two levels of exposure. And right now, I would just request the Navajo Nation, EPA, as well as the US EPA, to bring to the committee the level of radioactivity from that particular the hot spots, the 5 hot spots that are identified. And we will receive the results of the radon testing. What really sits in the back of my mind is the long-term impacts on the health of the children that went to school there, for whether it be a period of 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. And then the exposure to the educational and support staff, as well as to the parents and the community when school functions were staged throughout the successive school years. That's where my thoughts are. And again, is the Bureau of Indian Affairs looking at a new site rather than trying to remediate the current site? Ms. Shirley, those are some what Honorable Vice Chair Slater stated, and then what I'm putting on the table. Will then Navajo EPA, as well as Ms. Elsa Johnson, will the US EPA then also include the additional testing, one for radioactivity from the hotspots, the level that's outside the buildings, and then radon level inside the buildings?
Chair, if I may respond.
Yes, you may, surely.
Oh, yeah, ito siya, Nana Chair, Vice Chair, thank you for your questions as well, too. So, in response to radon, it's, I'm going to ask Ms. Sona Chilingarian to help me with this, too. From radon tends to be a little, I don't want to say tricky, but currently, in a way, it's unregulated. So that tends to be a problem for us. So let me pass the baton on to Ms. Eugenia Quintana to kind of elaborate on that. And Ms. Chilingarian, if you would, please feel free to jump in when you, if you can. Eugenia, can you kind of walk us through the radon portion and the regulatory portion of radon?
Ms. Quintana?
Yes, I just got back on. I didn't push my mute and unmute button correctly. Ms. Valinda Shirley is correct. Radon is not a regulated substance, and the reason why it is not regulated by U.S. EPA is because it's everywhere. There's radon everywhere. The natural, occurring breakdown is occurring, right now. It is coming up through the soil, from the ground into our homes and schools, where we work. It's everywhere. And I don't see a time anywhere in the near future where radon will become regulated, because there is just too much radon everywhere for everybody to comply with, for example, the action level that U.S. EPA puts out there right now, which is 4 picocuries per liter. Those, when you get like a radon problem per se, that means that the radon level in your facility, your structure, your home, your school is at least 4 picocuries per liter or more. Sometimes in other areas of the United States, radon is a huge problem. Radon levels can appear in the hundreds or thousands of picocuries per liter. But there are ways to reduce those indoor radon levels by installing radon mitigation systems. But there is still no safe level of radon. A safe level of radon gas would be 0 picocuries per liter, and it would have to stay that way. Sometimes when there are different types of disturbances to the ground, through like renovation activities, for example, that can disturb the soil pathways for radon. So it can either increase the radon levels because of those soil disturbances, or it can decrease the radon levels because of those soil disturbances. So in some ways, what Valinda said about radon being a little tricky, it can be, but we don't know how much radon there is for us to be able to determine if we should take action or not unless we test for it. So I'll just emphasize again that radon is not regulated in homes or structures or other public buildings.
Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Quintana, and thank you, Director Shirley. This is Sona Chilingarian with US EPA. Let me speak a little bit to the radon issue, and then speak a bit more broadly about US EPA's thoughts related to what we know so far for Cove Day School, as well as US EPA's role with abandoned uranium mine sites in the Cove area. So those were really helpful comments from Eugenia and Director Shirley. I am very glad, and I think it's very appropriate that Navajo EPA is deploying at the end of this week to get additional radon measurements. The radon measurements that we have currently for the school are several decades old. And from the US EPA's perspective, we don't know enough about how those measurements were taken to understand how problematic they potentially are. So it's going to be extremely helpful to get current data, and I'm really glad that there's plans underway to do that very quickly. Everything Ms. Quintana said about radon is absolutely true. The one thing I'll add is that both under federal CERCLA and Navajo Nation CERCLA, that's the Superfund law that allows US EPA and Navajo EPA to address contaminated areas. We have the ability to address radon emissions only if it's tied to mining related contamination. If it's naturally occurring radon, our regulatory authority does not allow us to address that. And I think that's where some of the challenges related to addressing radon come to play. I think some very good questions were asked by Honorable Delegate Slater about what's happening in the larger area of Cove to make sure that the area is safe. US EPA and Navajo EPA are working on assessing the abandoned uranium mine sites in the area. In the community of Cove, there are 2 transfer stations where mining-related materials were placed in the past that US EPA has taken interim actions at in previous years in order to ensure that contaminated materials are not posing a risk to individuals that live nearby. If the committee is interested, we're happy to provide more information about those efforts. But in terms of the Cove Day School, I think it's very important to do additional assessment work, and the information that we have points us in that direction. But mainly because we don't want to alarm folks without having data in hand. I think it's important to remember that currently we don't have information about the interior of the school that would allow us to reach a data-based conclusion about whether or not the interior of the school is safe. And so that's why it's really great that Navajo EPA will be taking radon measurements very, very soon, and that both US EPA and Navajo EPA will be deploying for an interior survey of the school that would look at other kinds of measurements, gamma radiation measurements, the week of September 6th, in order to obtain additional data about the interior of the school that would allow us to determine whether there are any elevated areas of concern within the school, and to advise BIE of our technical recommendation about whether or not the interior of the school is safe. In terms of the elevated areas that have already been identified by BIA's contractor on the outside of the school, those areas are absolutely elevated enough to be of concern, and they need to be addressed. I think it's helpful to maybe describe a little bit how elevated those 5 exterior areas are and what that means from a risk perspective. And so I'm going to ask Jesse Cass, who's one of our radiation experts, a health physicist, to speak to that a little bit, to give the committee and others on the phone a little bit of background about those areas and how they fit in to general perspective related to the level of risk that there is because of those areas. So Jesse, if you could speak to that a little bit, that would be really helpful.
Sure thing, Sona. This is Jesse Cass, US EPA. Can everyone hear me okay this time?
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, so let me just emphasize again what Sona said real briefly, which is that we don't currently have gamma radiation data inside the school. That's why we're collecting it. This was triggered by BIA's gamma radiation surveys outside, in the soils outside the school. And to date, they've found 5 small hotspots. Four of them are still present. These are, as others have said, these are physically small. Like, looks like it's just a few feet by a few feet. And from the photos that their contractor took, it looks a lot like it may just be pieces of ore rock or pieces of other kinds of rock, rather than building materials or something like that. And I don't want to say more definitively, but it's certainly very plausible that that's related to the mining activities right nearby, just like Elsa Johnson explained. So the radiation levels in those hotspots, I want to be very clear, the radiation levels in those hotspots are of real concern to EPA. It's appropriate that BIA is moving quickly to clean them up and to clean them up ahead of construction of the new school. So I want to sort of say that up front. It's also important to understand that those levels are associated with long-term cancer risk for someone who spent significant periods of time on or near the hotspots. So, folks may have heard, radiation stories from, nuclear weapons or nuclear power plants or something like that. And this is nothing like that. There aren't acute radiation risks from someone spending a brief period of time passing through, something like that. So these are absolutely places that need to be cleaned up, that we would be cleaning up on mine sites if they were on nearby areas, but they're associated with long-term cancer risk if someone were establishing a residence there, spending many years there as part of school activities, that type of thing. So again, very appropriate that BIA is acting quickly, given that this is on school grounds in the middle of a Navajo community. But I want to make sure folks have that sort of sense of perspective. Last thing I'll say really briefly, hearing comments there about, the interior concern about like bricks or other building materials, we share those concerns too. This is part of why we want to do this assessment inside, and to do it very thoroughly with multiple kinds of instrumentation. So we'll be bringing out an instrument called a multi-channel analyzer that will help us assess if there's elevated building materials, if there's, sort of natural material versus uranium mining related materials like that. But kind of regardless of the source, the fact that there are hot spots outside makes it necessary for us to make sure there are no issues inside, whether that's due to the building materials or due to something that was tracked inside of the school or something like that.
Thank you, Jesse. And thank you, Sona. Thank you, Eugenia. And I did want to kind of circle back to Delegate Slater's thoughts as well, too. I know that, for instance, back to the radon again, that the Head Start has an internal policy where they do test for radon within the Head Start buildings every 3 years. So a policy of that sort can certainly be entertained, just a proposed policy perhaps to propose and help maybe not even just schools, but maybe looking at a broader picture of also including all public buildings as part of that policy. That's one discussion that we were having with the radon program here within Navajo EPA, and we certainly wouldn't mind having to collaborate and bring in our federal counterparts to continue to develop that policy if that is the way we're going to go forward. And then I did also want to touch on the water analysis. So public drinking water is another program within Navajo EPA, and they regulate NTUA, for instance, and other, in some cases, schools as well, too. And when they regulate, NTUA and these other water systems, they do have to do a great deal of testing, and that testing is submitted to Navajo EPA to analyze. So I can certainly say, and just talking with Ms. Yolanda Barney, who is the head of that program, we do not have any concerns with water at this. We don't have any concerns. All of the water analysis and test results show within a safe standard. So that would be my comments back to you, Honorable Delegate Slater, and then I certainly stand by for questions and comments and so forth. Back to you, Chair. So, thank you.
Thank you. Again, the tests or the testing results that have occurred throughout the years, please share them with the committee and Honorable Delegate Amber Crotty. Just be aware that the committee has a working relationship with the UNM Metals Research Group. When we first convened in 2019, the committee was apprised of the birth cohort study in the Church Rock area. And basically then that drives this concern. And a member of the school board at Cove is also participating as a citizen science group in conjunction with the metals research group out of UNM. And depending on what the committee receives from all of the folks, we may, and again, we'll work closely with Dr. Chris Shuey and Dr. Johnny Lewis in seeing what we need to do going forward. Again, my main concern, the committee's concern, is the radioactive exposure while in the playground, while in the vicinity of the exterior of the building. That level of exposure is very concerning. And yes, inside the building, radon, yes. The walls may have shielded and deflected some of the uranium exposure. However, that slow rate of exposure, 4 to 6 hours a day for the students is of concern. And I'm kind of like almost to have Navajo EPA kind of like, okay, it's not regulated. Well then, you know, because it's unregulated doesn't mean that we're going to put it to the side. The health, the future health of these young folks, those that attended in the early 90s, they're in their 30s. They walked in, they attended school. And now we've affected their health. We meaning bigger government, the United States government, and then the department and agency of the U.S. government. That's the part that it really concerns me, and it has to be of great matter. Well, we will again keep this item on the focus of attention of the committee as we go forward.
Johnny, Belinda again. I wonder if you still would like to hear from Mr. Yazzie.
Yes, Mr. Yazzie, please. And Mr. Yazzie, thank you for the report that you emailed to the committee. Ms. Honorable Wanika and myself, we have the printed briefing paper that you had shared, and the committee has the email to follow along on that report. Mr. Yazzie.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Yat e nadeshnil. She ya Daryl Yazzie dashjinila. Dona enslini e bitaninshla. A e bitani bashashin. Can the cheating let out to the congé de chay. Tubbing to skate, I see Archiaho the body any badahuil uranium Hulyahi Aro radon that a at a be kidahunit on Hiadaho his spells need Alia Aro Hate Ashin Hidet Iso. On his bedhausen. So the discussions that we're having today, I agree, are very, very important. We need to identify what this pathway forward looks like. We feel privileged here at Navajo EPA, Navajo Superfund to be frontline for Navajo Nation. And in this regards for the HESI committee, we understand and we take on the roles that we have to protect human health and the environment as not just a job. Most of the people you have at Navajo EPA come from backgrounds where the impacts are very close and very personal. And for me, it's always that I always want to lead off with. Being a member of the Cane Valley area, having been raised in that area, knowing that we had a mill tailing site, there were a number of abandoned uranium mines, some that we're still addressing today, that we grew up with. The areas that we herded sheep in, the waters that we utilize, domestic waters. The impacts were great and still are. And so it's a task that we've taken on, that we've taken ownership of, to ensure that we're not only included, but that we're making decisions on behalf of our impacted communities. So it is with heavy hearts, with great interest, that we are involved because of what Honorable Slater had indicated, what he hadn't heard, the impacts of radiation to the young children that had attended this school. How long had this been there? What had been identified and what mitigation effort had been made. So that's been a part of what our roles have been. We've been asking that same question. What efforts have been made to mitigate this? And I want to share, with what our federal counterparts had identified. Radon progeny is a daughter product of uranium and thorium. So the element, and understanding that with radon gas, you have the element of radioactive materials in the air. That's where, when we identify that radon can cause lung cancer, it's in its gaseous form, it's what you breathe in. And once they're lodged in your lungs, and eventually starts to create chaos in your body. Science tells us that young cells that are growing are most susceptible. So we have a school here, a school setting with young people that are still growing. It's very concerning. So I want to ensure to the committee that we are involved. We want to maintain an open dialect with the members of this committee. That's why I reached out to all of you. I want to let you know that our office doors are open. Let me provide you a better opportunity to understand the full aspects of what radiation is. Just listening in, I kind of feel like there was a disconnect, that when we talk about radiation, that radon was held separately. But the fact is, radon in its state that we're looking for is radioactive. And then that's why it's so concerning with the work that we do. My Shema Elsa from US EPA identified the circular process in identifying that the polluter pays. So we want to ensure full engagement from both agencies, US EPA and Navajo EPA. We have committed to that. It is what we're charged with doing, to ensure that we address these types of scenarios. And on that note, I just want to say thank you to all parties involved, including BIA, BIE, for looping us in. And I think the timing that they looped us in was critical, clearly. And we want to help to move this process, and if we can, where we can, expedite it to bring a true remedy to this event. That's the group that we're doing this for. So on that note, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for hearing our presentations. Thank you for providing us feedback. And again, our doors here at Superfund are open. You all have my number. I've given you all of my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We are more than willing to sit and talk and give you a better understanding of what all of this work entails and how identifying this, if it is a CERCLA process, the true nature of it, how this impact needs to be identified in that way, moving us forward is a necessity for the agencies as well. Thank you.
Mr. Darrell Yazzie. Again, this is not a one-time visit to this matter that is before the committee. We will proceed to explore other options, and we may even ask other researchers to chime in on what has been presented to the committee, and if need be, other universities besides UNM to also look at the issue. So for the folks on the call from the federal side and from US EPA side and Navajo Nation EPA side, is that what you bring to the committee?
Chair, so Belinda Shirley here. Yes, that would complete our report to you, honorable members of HESI committee, and then certainly again keeping with Mr. Yazzie's last intimate is Mihishi had the host it do ahut elda Iska'ijeho a hotel hadad need inksto so ahunso do shahadole.
Ms. Shirley, we appreciate what you bring to us. Yes, we will continue. And again, for everybody that presented their report, give us some documents. We would appreciate it. Thank you. Committee members, any follow-up questions?
Chair, Halona. I just have a.
Honorable Purnell Halona, you have the teleconference floor.
Well, thank you, Chair, and all the presenters. Thank you very much for all your information. It is a really, really wide situation, problem that we have, and it just kind of upsets you because 30, 40 years ago, when they were pulling that uranium out of those mines, the government never came to us and said this was dangerous. And now we're at this point, the juncture where we're going to have contamination, and we have contamination from generations to generations where the babies are born with the radioactive active material in their body. So I'm kind of upset about that. But the other thing, that point that I wanted to bring out was you're all familiar with Wingate and armory and ammunitions they had displayed over there. It was brought to my attention that some of those crates, the boxes that all the ammunition was stored in, when they started getting all those weapons out of there, they didn't destroy those boxes, or they didn't burn them or dispose of them properly. And the people all around came by and started picking up all those wooden boxes, and they building their houses with that. And then they found out after they had built their homes and lived in it for 15, 20 years that those boxes were contaminated with radiation. I was just curious about that. If Mr. Yazzie, if anybody's ever brought that to your attention, because I know now there's several houses or homes around Mariano Lake, Church Rock, in that area, where the people had built their homes out of those crates, and now they're living in them, and they're exposed to radiation. And you and I know that radiation doesn't go away for thousands of years, hundreds of years. I was just curious if you know about that situation out there where those crates were used to build homes. That's my question, Chair. I just was wanting to find out if they had any information on that. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Honorable Slater. Honorable Halona. Again, the focus was on Cove Day School. And so we will have to take that issue on at another time. That one is, yes. Lots of folks use the ammo boxes. Thank you. Anybody else, committee members? For us to proceed, we need a motion and a second to adopt the series of reports. Honorable Slater. Honorable Vice Chair Slater, can you take over the meeting on BNF has just called up the Veterans Program up to go on that call to sponsor the Veterans Administration budget.
Sounds good, Shania. Good luck, and I'm just going to pick up where you left off. So,
thank you.
Committee members. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead. I'm going to exit the
Committee
room.
members.
Call back in between discussions.
Motion, Delegate Paul Begay.
Chair has a motion from Delegate Begay. Is there a second from Delegate Winika? Committee members, is there further questions or discussion on this report? Hearing none, for the Vice Chair would like to make a request to the motioning parties, and that would be to honor the request from Shema Delegate Crotty to have a layman's term report developed. And I think where the committee has the most direct oversight is with with Navajo Nation EPA. So we would ask that EPA would file a report in coordination with the Bureau. And I'll present that to the committee and see if anyone is interested in including that as a directive and accepting the motion. And then also if there's feedback from Navajo Nation EPA, Ms. Shirley, whether you that is possible and appropriate.
Motion to accept that recommendation included with the motion. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Delegate Wanika, would you consent to that?
Yes, Vice Chair.
There's a lot of background noise. Delegate Wanika, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
And is that agreeable to you?
Vice
Delegate
Chair,
Wanika?
can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I just think the inclusion of the directive is acceptable to you.
Yeah, Vice Chair, this is Wanika.
And the inclusion of that directive is acceptable to you?
Yes, it's fine.
Sounds good. Shirley, are you still on the line?
Yes, Honorable Delegate, I am.
Is that something you're capable of completing?
Yes, sir. And if we have any questions or have additional thoughts, we'll reach out to you, sir.
Thank you. And then also please keep Delegate Crotty in the loop.
Yes, sir, of course.
Committee members, is there any further discussion? Going twice.
Vice Chair Slater, this is Delegate Crotty. Thank you for the time. I appreciate the committee. I just wanted to mention that I was still here on the call, and I know that we've taken a lot of time in this report. If I could just, so I could mark it on my calendar when this will be on the committee's agenda. I know with your advisor, I'm just not, if I could receive the calendar invites, that makes it so much easier to add it onto my calendar. Thank you, Chair. I was excused from the BNF budget hearing to be part of this discussion, and I appreciate that from the committee.
And who's holding all the programs accountable then if you're not there? I'm just kidding. Okay.
I'm sure they all got like the free pass.
I'm going to keep my mouth shut. So I will ensure that Ms. Benali gets that message. She's taking care of the outreach right now, school boards. And then in terms of the report and getting back, I need to go back and actually review the time or the schedule that Budget and Finance is proposing for the comprehensive budgets. And I think there's potential that next Wednesday we might not be convening as HES. So we'll get back to you. Ms. Shirley, do you think you can get a summary completed by the end of next week?
So we can have results to share from the radon portion, but since US EPA, Navajo EPA won't be out to do the radiological studies until early September, I won't be able to share that portion, but we can certainly prepare something on the radon.
Okay, I was envisioning just a report on where we're at to date on the radioactive side and radon, and then after, September 6th, we'll get an update on what the results are. Is that possible?
Okay. All right, we can do that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll be in communication by the end of next week, and then in terms of coming back to the committee, we'll have Ms. Benali email Delegate Crotty. Committee members, any further discussion? Okay. Ms. Springer, can you please do a roll call vote for this report?
Yes, I can, Vice Chair. Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote?
Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Clavigay votes green. Honorable Pinal Halona, how do you vote?
Red.
Honorable Pinal Halona votes red. Honorable Charlene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edison Winika, how do you vote? Honorable Edison Winika votes green. Honorable Daniel So, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Vice Chair, you have 3 members in favor, 1 opposed, and Vice Chair not voting.
Thank you very much, Ms. Springer. We're going to move along on our agenda. And give me one moment to pull it back up. We'll go to 6, old business. None, 7, new business. 7A is legislation 174-21. And the sponsor is Delegate So. And 7B is also sponsored by Delegate So, co-sponsored by Speaker Damon. Committee members, if you're there and willing to co-sponsor, you could probably make it easier for passing these out of committee.
Tilla, Vice Chair Slater, BNF went on recess.
Okay, well then, I'm going to call legislation 7A 174-21, an action relating to health, education, human services, law and order, budget and finance, and number committees, and the Navajo Nation Council enacting the Navajo Nation Air is Life of 2021. Sorry, Air is Life Act of 2021. Sponsored Delegate Daniel So, co-sponsored Delegate Seth Damon. Is there a motion, colleagues?
Motion, Juanita.
Second.
Is there a second? The chair recognizes a motion from Delegate Winika and a second from Delegate Begay. Committee members, do you desire a presentation or do you have questions on the legislation? Oh, actually, I apologize. We need to, oh no, this is not the final authority, so we don't need to read it into the record. Committee members?
I have a question, Chair.
Okay. Tonight, Chairman So, you are recognized to provide your presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm Dr. Patricia Nez Henderson, are you on the call? Or Mr. Alfred Yazzie, are you on the call? Okay, those 2 individuals that I named were going to be the agents. Basically, committee members, the intent and purpose of this legislation is to help in the promotion of a healthy environment to our Navajo people in both the workplace as well as in the commercial setting. Prohibit the use of commercial tobacco products, meaning conventional cigarettes, pipes, cigars, chewing tobacco, what's called hookah, and e-cigarettes. And so that is basically the intent and purpose of this particular legislation. Um, and basically and it does not touch the aspects of the fundamental traditions and the use of mountain tobacco or other sacred plants uses in ceremonies. But what we are basically intending to do is to prohibit these commercial products, to protect and to prolong the health and the safety of our Navajo citizens. That is the basis. And right now, the chair or me as a sponsor, I've already been approached by Navajo Gaming. And in that aspect, then I think that's where Mr. Holona is wanting to ask questions about, but we know where his interests are. So, Mr. Chair, presiding chair, that would be the extent of providing this opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just do a second call for the agents. Are they available at the time? Sounds like not. Okay. Delegate Holona, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Delegate, so you hit it right on button. That is my concern. I understand that right now, the casinos, I guess, they're working on infiltration system where there's a new system that they're putting in together right now to eliminate a lot of that smoke from cigarette use. So there's some things that are being done right now that will work. And but the other thing that would also work would be to have a space designated for only smokers to do their gaming. And that's another option.
Is before the HES committee. I need her.
Excuse me, somebody's talking in the background.
Chair, so do you think you could mute your phone, please? We can hear you. Delegate Holona, please continue.
Okay, so the impact that it will have on the casinos will be tremendous, up to 20 to 30% loss in income. So we need to figure out ways to continue to let people do that, do their smoking. It's their pastime. Nobody twists anybody's arm to go smoke and all that. It's something that maybe they're addicted, but there are those who are smokers that want to smoke and they go into the casinos and a casino is also a pastime activity where a person can go in and do their gambling and satisfy their urge and need for wanting to try to win some money. And that'd be the same thing with smoking in the casinos. That's part of the reason why most of the people that go to the casinos, they're smokers. So if we had a designated area aside for the smokers, there's things like that we can work with. But just to ban it completely from having a total ban, I think is a little bit severe. You want to put it that way. But I do understand the health and of the employees, the workers. But again, you have to realize that too. There's a lot of the workers that work there, they also smoke cigarettes. And so, you're not really helping their health, as a matter of fact. But there's just a couple of things I wanted to bring out. I do believe that we do need to have areas where there is protected from cigarette smoke, and that can be done. And they separate the areas for people who are smokers. That all can be done in a manner where we can protect everybody that wants to be protected. And the smokers, of course, if you smoke cigarettes, you're playing with your own life, and you don't want to be protected. So that's a decision that people want to make. Then you let them do what they're going to do. But my main thing that concern is that it's been widely publicized, and a lot of the casinos across the country that had banned smoking, they lost 25, 30, 35% of their income. And right now, our casinos are barely coming back online. They're barely getting back to a profitable margin. And if we put this ban on the smokers there, we're going to be hurting our pocketbooks as well. And I don't know that we want to go that extreme, but I think we can work with it and have designated areas for smokers. So those are just my comments right there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Delegate Volcano. Delegate Winika, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Appreciate it. Members of the committee and all those that are listening in. Yeah, I got contacted by the gaming also, and I support it as far as the situation they were in during the pandemic, and I voted for their support and all that. And then I'm concerned about this because as the chair presented his reasoning for doing this legislation, he said safe environment. Environment is what I'm concerned about. Liquor is also allowed in the gaming area, and that is just a choice of individual. It only hurts them as far as health-wise and whatever. But smoking extends beyond that. It's the environment of the area, in the area that they're in. And I know there's problems with secondhand smoke. And there's a commercial, I guess we've all seen it. I think it's a tribe, Tlingit individuals always on the air saying that he's a walking ghost, and all because of secondhand smoke. So we're really infringing on the safety of other people if we allow this. So I know we're saying that it's going to jeopardize the gaming enterprise, but how much more are we going to infringe on the rights of our people, especially the safety environment of our people? That's what I'm concerned about. I know I motioned this legislation, but motion it doesn't mean that we support it. It's just to get it on the table for those that are presenting the legislation. So that's my concern, is the environment of our people. How much more are we going to put our people in danger? We're all going through this virus at this time, and it's really hurting our people. Are we going to put something else in the environment that's going to hurt them? That's my concern, Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate Winika. Committee members, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Hearing none. Those are more of comments, but Delegate Paul Begay, you're recognized.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair.
This is a very touchy subject. And to me, even though it is a very touchy subject, I believe in the old saying, one life gone is one life gone too much. Something like that. I really respect the people's choice. And like Honorable Delegate Juanita said, there's kind of a difference between liquor and smoking. Yet you can smell the liquor, but it does not. It's not passed on to the non-user. And on the other hand, smoking is dangerous, especially, there's even statistics that say that secondhand smoke is more dangerous than the user smoking his own cigarettes. I'm a member of the gaming subcommittee, but I also am there on behalf of my people. I don't like looking at grandpas sitting at the machine smoking. I think a lot of them, and I even heard stories, it's the stress of losing money. Sometimes it will cause a person to smoke. It's the stress, to relieve the stress of that gambling dependency that causes a person to go drink or to smoke. And what bothers me is the smoke is airborne, and we don't know if it is dangerous with this COVID-19 in mind. When it is airborne, is it also carried if somebody is carrying the virus? We don't know that. You could see a person who's sitting smoking 50, 60 feet away, and you can still smell the smoke. I have to vote on behalf of my people and my people's health. Do we want the money more than we want a life? That's the question I ask myself. Do we value the money more than the human being, are the net people? If a person wants to smoke, do it like those other casinos. Go take it outside. Have a designated space. I went to a casino, Isleta Casino in New Mexico. There's smoking areas outside under a tarp. A shade is set up for them. That's where people smoke. They can do it outside, not inside, where it is contained inside the building. My job at this moment is not my commitment to the gaming committee. My commitment will first and always be my commitment to the people, the net people. Thank you.
Delegate Begay, does that conclude your remarks?
Yes, Vice Chair.
Thank you. I think we have some comments, but I'd like to go back to Chairman Nez. Is there more that you would like to add to your presentation?
Do you mean so?
This is
Yeah, I do.
Daniel So. And
Sorry. I apologize, Chair.
that's quite all right. We all have faced that particular situation before. Appreciate it. I'm texting back and forth to one of the agents, and basically they had not been given advance notice on this particular call-in, and we're not furnished the agenda, so I'm at it alone. But as this action proceeds to, there's new changes. Committee members, I've been apprised that this Air is Life legislation will now go to Resource and Development Committee, then to the Law and Order, Resource and Development, Budget and Finance, NABI, and then finally to the Council. So committee members, no matter the vote, then it proceeds on to the next item. So with that, committee members, that would be the extent of the presentation, presiding chair.
Chair Solana?
Delegate Solana, you recognized?
Thank you. Thank you, committee members and Delegate. So, Chair, I was wondering, Chair, is there any statistics yet right now out? Has anybody done any statistics as far as how many Navajos out there are smokers and how many are non-smokers? Is there a percentage of the people out there? Because, you know, it seems like here in Gallup, everywhere you go, I see a lot of natives smoking cigarettes. So I was just curious about that. See if there was any numbers that you might be able to put up, and what the population, how widespread is this pleasure that they're undertaking? Chair.
I'll recognize the sponsor of the legislation to respond to the question.
Thank you, presiding chair. That wasn't, well, again, my agents aren't on the call, and they would have provided that information. However, again, they didn't get the advance notice that they were on the call. They're trying to call in now, but it's not letting them into the call. So I apologize for that. Honorable Halona, that particular information will be provided as we move along to the other committees. Thank you.
Okay. Are there more questions, committee members?
Honorable Slater, one more time. I just got a text from Ms. Patricia Nez Henderson. She's on the Facebook feed. She texted me and said 20% of the smokers are Navajo smokers. So in
okay,
that,
thank you, Chair.
those that basically, and again, the follow-up documents from which that particular figure will be provided to the committee and that will be provided to as part of the documents that would be talked about as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Committee members, are there further questions?
Oh, Mr. Chair.
This is Mr. Haven.
Yes, Vice Chair. I apologize. Does Mr. Halona have an amendment that he's asking for?
Delegate Halona?
Not at this time, Chair. I might have one in a later meeting here when as this legislation moves along.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Haven.
The Director. The Vice Chair is asking for any further discussion or questions from the committee. Going twice. Ms. Springer, can you please do a roll call vote for legislation 174, please?
Vice Chair, what was that?
Oh, good.
Can you please do a roll call vote for this legislation?
Okay, I'm going to complete the roll call vote. Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote?
Oh, good. Good. Thank you.
Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote? Honorable Pernell Halona, how do you vote?
Halona votes red.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes red. Honorable Charlene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edison Wanika, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Edison Wanika votes green. Honorable Daniel So, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Vice Chair, you have 2 members in favor, 1 opposed, and Vice Chair not voting.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Vice Chair, you have 3 members in favor, 1 opposed, and Vice Chair not voting.
Thank you very much. Committee members, we move on down the agenda. We have another legislation from Chairman So, not Nez. Still hurt that I messed that up. This is item 7B, 173-21, an act relating to Health, Education, and Human Services, Budget and Finance, and the committees approving and authorizing a contract between the Navajo Nation and the United States Department of the Interior under 25 USC subsection 5301 in sequential parentheses public law 93-638 as amended end parens for a period of 5-year term, for a 5-year term for the period beginning January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2026 for the Navajo Nation Higher Education Program. Approving and authorizing the Navajo Nation Higher Education Program fiscal year 2022 annual funding agreement and scope of work. The sponsor is Delegate Chairman Daniel E. So, and the co-sponsor is Speaker Damon. Committee members, is there a motion?
Motion, Halona.
Is there a second?
Second, Delegate Begay.
The chair recognizes a motion from Delegate Halona and a second from Delegate Begay. Committee members, do you desire a presentation or do you have questions?
Chair, Ms. Alona, I'd like to have them explain a little bit more into detail on what this legislation is about.
Chair, you're recognized to begin your presentation.
Thank you, Satilla, presiding chair, vice chair Slater, and committee members. I do have Ms. Rose Graham on the call. She is the agent, and basically what it is a practice to reauthorize the higher education contract every 5 years, and the time has come for us to reauthorize it beginning January 1, 2022, and successively and ending December 31, 2026. And I will basically defer to Agent Rose Graham to give further details of the intent and purpose and the aspects of this particular legislation. This legislation was drafted by Mr. Haven, and if there are questions on the legislation, then Mr. Haven would be available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So, Ms. Graham, you're recognized. Ms. Graham, are you on the line?
Hello, this is Rose Graham with the Scholarship Office Higher Education Grant Program. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yate, members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair and members, Yate. This legislation is to renew the higher education grant, which is a 638 contract between the Navajo Nation and BIA Navajo Region, and be proposed from 2000. The current contract ends in at the end of 2021 in December, so we're getting ready for the next year. So 2022 through 2026 is the contract period. The Navajo Nation Scholarship Office administers the contract, and the majority of, or all of our operations and personnel is funded by this grant. So we have 5 offices throughout the Navajo Nation, and and everything is online. We've had, like everywhere else, a very challenging year, but we were able to continue to provide services throughout the government closures from the onset of the pandemic to the present. So it's a vital program to the Navajo Nation, and every year we receive an average of $12 million a year, and which provides services with personnel and operations. Somebody just muted me. So we ask for your support in renewing this 638 contract. I can answer any questions you may have.
I know, I'm trying to call in right now.
Okay, Chairman, so you're unmuted, but are you, Ms. Graham, I think just completed her report. Does that conclude your remarks on the legislation to start off? Okay, committee members, do we have questions or comments on legislation 17321?
No.
Going twice? Ms. Springer, can you please do a roll call vote for legislation 17321?
Yes, I can, Vice Chair. Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote? Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona, how do you vote?
What about green?
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Charlene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edison Winika, how do you vote? Honorable Edison Winika votes green. Honorable Daniel So, how do you vote? Mr. So votes green. Honorable Daniel So votes green. Vice Chair, you have 4 members in favor, 0 opposed, and Vice Chair not voting.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see.
Thank you, committee members.
It looks like, oh, Sam, thank you. So, Chair said us going back into the Budget Finance Committee call for the House resolution. Continue presiding over the meeting. At this time, I think we are at the end of our agenda. So, item 8, close of meeting announcement adjournment. Are there any announcements? The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Well, I guess one announcement is we'll have a special session tomorrow. Oh, I missed the first. Who had the motion?
Begay.
Okay. Delegate Begay, I'll let you recognize. Is there a second? Delegate Halona or Delegate Winika, you may have been muted, so perhaps *6, but we need a second to adjourn. Okay, I think we have a second from Delegate Winika and a motion from Delegate Begay to adjourn the meeting. Ms. Springer, can you please do a roll call vote to adjourn?
Yes, I can. Honorable Paul Begay, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona, how do you vote?
Halona votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Charlene So, how do you vote? Honorable Edison Winika, how do you vote? Honorable Edison Winika votes green. Honorable Daniel So, how do you vote? Vice Chair, you have 3 members in favor, 0 opposed, and Vice Chair not voting.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. We'll talk tomorrow, colleagues.